Have you ever walked into a convenience store, just to grab a quick bottle of water?
Just water, right.
Yeah, just the water. And then like 15 minutes later, you're walking out with a gourmet chocolate bar, a new brand of chips you've never even heard of, and just absolutely zero regrets.
Oh, absolutely. And it feels completely spontaneous when it happens.
It really does. But today, we're diving into a fascinating university-level marketing module.
Calibrated specifically for the Philippine context, actually.
Right, exactly. It proves that absolutely none of that trip to the store was an accident. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because our mission for this deep dive today is not to teach you how to sell things. We want to help you decode that invisible architecture around you to understand why we actually buy things.
Yeah, because that feeling of spontaneity you mentioned, that is the ultimate illusion.
An illusion, yeah.
Advertising at its highest level is a lot like a grand-scale magic trick. The audience, meaning you and me, we only see the prestige, right? The final purchase at the register.
But the marketer is looking at something else entirely.
Exactly. They are looking at the trapdoors, the hidden mirrors, and all the psychological sleight of hand that's happening inside our own brains.
And the core premise of this module is pretty stark. It basically says that advertising without deeply understanding human behavior is just setting money on fire.
It really is. A truly great campaign is almost never about the physical product itself.
Wait, really? Not the product?
Not really. I mean, it's not about listing the technical specifications of a camera or like the specific ingredients in a snack. If companies rely solely on those features, they waste millions.
Right, because effective marketing requires grasping human motivations, our fears, our aspirations.
Precisely. Because if I'm trying to sell you luxury watches, cartons of milk, life insurance, and a smartphone, I can't just yell, buy this because it's high quality at the exact same group of people.
Yeah, the way I think about purchasing milk has absolutely nothing to do with how I think about buying a watch. The context dictates everything.
Right. If consumers made perfectly logical, uniform decisions every single time, this entire industry just wouldn't need to exist.
We just buy the cheapest, most efficient thing.
Exactly. But we are beautifully complex and sometimes completely irrational. So to understand advertising, we have to first map out the specific cognitive journey a person takes before they ever reach for their wallet.
But, mapping that journey assumes we don't just wake up and randomly purchase things. There must be some kind of sequence we follow, even if we don't actively notice it.
Oh, there is. There is a highly structured 5-stage cognitive progression.
5 stages. Okay, what's the first one?
It starts with need recognition.
Need recognition.
Yeah, this happens the exact moment you perceive a gap between your actual state and your desired state.
So like my phone battery dies or I feel a pang of hunger.
Exactly. That gap creates psychological tension. And to resolve that tension, you immediately move to the second stage, which is information search.
Which I imagine is where I start frantically digging through my memory, like, what did I eat last time I was this hungry?
Right, that's the internal search.
And if I draw a blank internally, I pull out my phone and look up reviews or ask a friend.
That's the external search. And once you've gathered all that information, you arrive at the third stage,
Which is?
Evaluation of alternatives. And the text introduces a really critical concept here called the evoked set.
An evoked set. I'm picturing like a VIP list.
A VIP list is a perfect way to look at it.
So out of the hundreds of brands that exist in a supermarket, this is the tiny exclusive list in my brain that actually gets a chance at my money.
Yes, exactly. If a brand hasn't managed to get past the velvet rope into your evoked set, they are functionally invisible to you.
Wow. I'll just walk right past them on the shelf.
You won't even register there. So after weighing this VIP set, you hit the fourth stage, the purchase decision, where you just choose the option that offers the best perceived value.
Then the transaction happens. I hand over the cash. But the module emphasizes that the journey does not end at the cash register.
No, not at all. There is a fifth stage, post-purchase behavior.
Post-purchase. So this is where long-term loyalty is either forged or destroyed.
Exactly. Are you satisfied? Will you buy it again?
Yeah.
Brands actively engineer campaigns to manipulate this specific stage. The module uses Spotify Wrapped as a brilliant case study of this.
Oh man, I am obsessed with Spotify Wrapped.
See, exactly.
It's just a masterclass in product design. They give you this beautifully packaged, data-driven summary of your entire musical identity for the year. It makes me feel incredibly validated about my taste in music. That is pure post-purchase satisfaction.
It validates the user, yes, but it also serves a highly calculated dual purpose.
The dual purpose.
Think about what happens when you take that wrapped card and share it all over your social media. Consider what that does to everyone who doesn't use Spotify.
Oh, wow. It triggers their need recognition.
Right.
They feel intense FOMO. They realize they're missing out on this massive cultural moment, which instantly creates that gap between their actual state and their desired state.
It's genius.
Spotify is working the end of the journey for you and the beginning of the journey for your friends simultaneously.
They've created a completely self-sustaining loop.
I completely get that for, a subscription service or buying a complex piece of tech like a laptop where I'm spending weeks weighing specs and prices. But let me push back a bit on the smaller stuff. Wait, do I really go through 5 complex cognitive stages just to buy a candy bar?
You do.
I feel like I'm definitely not going through a complex evaluation. I'm just grabbing sugar.
The mechanism doesn't disappear, it just compresses to the point of being nearly instantaneous.
Really?
The steps are identical. You recognize the tension, craving sugar. You do a split-second internal memory search for what satisfies you. You scan the shelf, evaluating your evoked set. You make the purchase decision. And finally, you experience post-purchase behavior.
Oh, you mean what happens 10 minutes after I eat that candy bar?
Yeah.
The inevitable sugar crash and the profound sense of guilt.
Exactly. Advertisers call that cognitive dissonance, or buyer's remorse, and they spend massive amounts of money trying to preemptively soothe that dissonance across all product categories.
Wow.
Furthermore, this entire 5-step process rarely happens in isolation. The module actually breaks down the different buying roles involved in a single purchase.
Oh, right, the roles.
Yeah.
The initiator, the influencer, the decision maker, the buyer, and the user.
Yes, exactly.
So, like, if I'm a parent buying a new video game console, my kid is the initiator who begs for it. Their favorite streamer is the influencer who showed them the game.
Right.
My partner might be the decision maker who agrees it's a good reward for good grades. I'm the buyer who physically puts in the credit card, and the kid is the user.
And that means a single advertisement might have to appeal to all of you simultaneously, but for completely different reasons.
That sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is. And those specific roles are weighed down by 4 massive external factors: cultural, social, personal, and psychological.
Okay, can you give an example of those?
Sure. Well, in the Philippines, the cultural gravity of the Christmas season starts in September.
Wow, September.
Yeah, that entirely alters the buying journey. Or consider a social factor, where a teenager only wants a specific shoe because a basketball idol wears it. Your deeply held personal beliefs, your culture, your income bracket, these invisible forces are constantly warping how you move through those 5 stages.
So if the consumer journey is this chaotic, layered with all these different roles and cultural pressures and psychological factors, a brand can't just guess.
No, they absolutely cannot.
Sitting in a boardroom, assuming you know what people want, sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. So how do they actually uncover the truth?
They have to shift from simply collecting data to actually mining for insights.
Mining for insights.
Yeah, the text emphasizes that advertising without research is like navigating a maze blindfolded. You start with marketing research, which is the systematic, objective collection of data. This gives you your map.
I'm assuming this is where they deploy primary and secondary research. So a brand might run their own focus groups or watch how shoppers navigate a physical aisle, which is primary, while also looking at broad economic reports or census data, which would be secondary.
Exactly. You need a mix of hard numbers and softer emotional feedback to get the full picture. The hard numbers are what we call quantitative data, the percentages, the sales figures. The emotional feedback is qualitative data. But here's the critical distinction the module makes.
Right.
Marketing research just tells you what is happening. Consumer insights tell you why it is happening. Let's look at the milk tea case study from the text.
Okay, so a major milk tea chain notices a sharp drop in their sales. That's a raw data point. It's purely quantitative.
Right. It tells them they're losing money but gives zero direction on how to actually fix it.
So what did they do?
They conducted qualitative research and discovered a shift in consumer sentiment. People were becoming highly conscious of their sugar intake and dairy consumption. Armed with that knowledge, the company introduces a new line featuring oat milk and customizable lower sugar levels. Sales rebound. They transformed a sterile data point into a behavioral insight that essentially saved the bottom line.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text has this analogy that completely changed how I view this entire industry.
Oh, the coffee one.
Yes. Data is observing that thousands of people buy a cup of coffee every single morning at 7 a.m. but the insight. The insight is realizing that they aren't actually purchasing a beverage.
Right.
They're buying a transitional ritual. They're buying 10 minutes of peace to mentally prepare for a stressful workday. The hot liquid is just the delivery mechanism for the psychological armor.
What's fascinating here is the methodology behind that realization. The text provides a golden formula for this. Observation plus motivation equals insight.
Observation plus motivation.
Yes. You take the raw behavioral data you observed, you relentlessly question the deep human motivation driving it, and that combination yields your insight.
I want to see this in action with a massive brand.
Yeah.
The Nike example from the module seems to perfectly capture this formula.
Oh, absolutely. Nike's entire empire is built on a single, profound insight.
Okay, break it down for me.
The observation is that people buy athletic shoes, but the motivation isn't a desire for vulcanized rubber or breathable mesh, right?
Right. Nobody thinks about the rubber.
Exactly. The deep human truth is that people crave confidence and empowerment. They want to overcome their physical limitations. So the Just Do It campaign doesn't highlight shoe construction at all. It speaks directly to that internal motivation.
That perfectly bridges into the Snickers case study, which is honestly wild to think about.
That's such a good example.
Mars, the parent company, had all this data showing Snickers was stagnating against competitors. Their observation was pretty basic. People get irritable when they are hungry. We've all been hangry.
We definitely have.
But they didn't just stop at eat this candy to feel full.
No, they pushed for the deeper motivation. The insight they unearthed was that hunger doesn't just make your stomach rumble. It fundamentally compromises your identity.
Your identity.
Yes. When you are hungry, you become clumsy, you lose your focus, you ruin the dynamic of your friend group. You are literally a different person.
You're not you when you're hungry.
Exactly.
They didn't sell peanuts and nougat. They sold an antidote to an identity crisis. They offered a way to return to your true self. And it worked universally across entirely different languages and cultures because the insight tapped into something fundamentally human.
It's brilliant marketing.
But let's follow this logic. A brand does the research. They hit gold. They find a universal human truth like the Snickers identity crisis. The temptation must be to take a megaphone and scream that insight at every single human being on Earth. Why would they just broadcast it to everyone?
Well, doing that introduces the STP framework, which the text calls the strategic backbone of modern advertising.
STP. That's segmentation, targeting, and positioning.
Right. Correct, because if you attempt to be everything to everyone, your message becomes so watered down it connects with no one. You have to divide the massive, chaotic market into manageable, highly defined groups. That is market segmentation.
But dividing the market isn't just drawing arbitrary lines, though. The text outlines 4 bases for this: demographic, geographic, psychographic, and behavioral.
Right.
I feel like demographic and geographic are the easiest to grasp: age, income, location. But how does a brand practically use psychographic or behavioral segmentation to completely change a campaign?
Well, it alters the entire DNA of the message. If you segment demographically by saying, we target men aged 45 to 60, that's a massive diverse group with nothing in common except their birth year.
Sure.
But if you segment psychographically, you target based on lifestyle, values, and internal personality traits. You might target adventure seekers who prioritize environmental conservation. Suddenly, age doesn't matter.
Oh, I see.
A 25-year-old and a 60-year-old might share that exact psychographic profile, allowing the brand to speak to their shared worldview rather than their shared demographic.
And behavioral segmentation focuses purely on how they interact with the product itself. Like, are they heavy users, first-time users, or deeply brand loyal?
Precisely. And once you have segmented the market using these bases, you move to targeting. This is where you evaluate those distinct groups and decide which specific battlefield you want to fight on.
What are the options there?
You could go with undifferentiated or mass marketing, offering one generic product to the entire market, which is incredibly rare today. There's differentiated marketing, creating separate campaigns for several segments, or concentrated marketing, going all in on one specialized niche.
I still struggle with this limitation.
How so?
If you have a massive budget and an insight is truly universal, why intentionally ignore huge swaths of the population by using concentrated targeting?
Because desire does not equal profitability.
Okay, explain that.
Not every segment is equally accessible or capable of purchasing. The module provides a striking case study on this. Mercedes-Benz entering the Indian market.
Okay, India has over 1 billion people. A rapidly growing economy. The universal desire for transportation and status is absolutely present.
The desire is universal, yes. But Mercedes looked at the data and realized that attempting mass marketing would be a catastrophic waste of capital.
Why?
Because out of that billion-plus population, only a minuscule fraction had the actual purchasing power, around 3.2 million rupees, or roughly 32 lakh to afford a luxury vehicle. And even within that wealthy group, not everyone wanted a luxury car.
So if they ran broad television ads targeting the general public, 99% of the people seeing the ad couldn't buy the product, even if they loved it.
It would be entirely inefficient. So Mercedes used concentrated targeting. They focused their resources exclusively on that tiny high net worth segment. They tailored their showrooms, their media buys, and their messaging only to the people who were mathematically capable of swiping the credit card. Targeting is ultimately an exercise in ruthless resource allocation.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
We've mapped the invisible cognitive journey. We've dug past the raw data to unearth a psychological insight. We've segmented the population and targeted a highly profitable, concentrated niche. The brand is ready to launch. But here's the problem.
okay, what's the problem?
50 competing companies have done the exact same research and targeted the exact same niche. How on earth does a brand ensure the consumer chooses them?
This is where we arrive at the final and perhaps most crucial step of the STP framework, positioning.
Positioning.
Yes. You don't position a product on a store shelf or in a factory. You configure your brand's image to occupy a highly specific, distinct piece of real estate inside the consumer's mind.
Mental real estate.
Right.
Because our brains can't hold on to a list of complex product features for 10 different brands, so we reduce them to simplified concepts. We remember their position.
That is exactly why brands create a rigid positioning statement. It acts as their internal compass. The formula is quite specific to your target audience. Your brand is the frame of reference that offers a specific point of difference, backed up by a reason to believe.
The text brings up the legendary Avis car rental campaign to illustrate this.
Yes, Avis.
Avis was stuck in second place behind Hertz. And being number 2 is generally seen as a weakness.
Wow.
Nobody wants the silver medalist.
But Avis flipped the narrative by claiming an entirely new piece of mental real estate. Their positioning statement essentially communicated, because we are only number 2 in rental cars, we can't afford to take you for granted. We try harder.
We try harder.
Yes, they didn't try to claim they were the biggest. They carved out the position of the hungry, dedicated underdog who will hustle to earn your business.
It's a brilliant reframing. But how does a brand actually visualize this? Like, how do they know what mental real estate is currently occupied by their competitors and what is sitting completely empty?
They use a tool called a perceptual map.
A map.
Yeah, imagine a two-dimensional grid with a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. You assign attributes to these axes based on what your target consumer cares about. For a clothing brand, the vertical axis might run from low price to high price, and the horizontal might run from classic style to trendy style.
And you plot all your competitors on that grid. So if every single clothing brand in your city is clustered in the low-price, trendy style quadrant, that space is an absolute bloodbath. You can't win there.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire objective of perceptual mapping is to locate a quadrant that consumers actively desire, but that is entirely devoid of competitors.
It's finding the empty space.
Exactly. The module highlights the liquid death case study, which perfectly exemplifies finding empty mental real estate.
Oh, liquid death. The bottled water industry is notorious. You have massive legacy brands, and if you plot them on a perceptual map, they're all jammed into the exact same quadrant.
They really are.
They all use serene mountain peaks, tranquil lakes, and delicate health imagery. The messaging is identical.
So Liquid Death looked at that map and walked in the opposite direction. They didn't try to out-serene the mountain water brands. They created a brand that looked and sounded like a heavy metal band or an energy drink.
Yeah, they put their water in tallboy aluminum cans that resemble craft beer.
Right, and their slogan was, "Murder Your Thirst," featuring skull imagery.
They looked at young adults going to concerts or skate parks. These consumers wanted to stay hydrated, but holding a crinkly, delicate plastic water bottle ruined their aesthetic.
Completely ruined it.
So Liquid Death ignored the tranquil health quadrant completely and claimed the aggressive, rebellious lifestyle quadrant. They turned literal water, the most basic commodity on Earth, into a billion-dollar empire simply by finding empty space on the map.
And this strategy applies just as powerfully to emotional positioning, which brings us to the massive Philippine case study from the text Jollibee.
Jollibee is an absolute institution. But when you look closely at their advertising, they aren't fighting in the typical fast food quadrants.
No, they aren't. In a landscape where competitors are fiercely battling over the cheapest combo meal quadrant or the fastest drive-through quadrant, Jollibee abandoned those metrics.
Interesting.
Through campaigns like their incredibly popular Kwentong Jollibee series, they built their positioning entirely around deep emotional resonance.
They tapped into a profound cultural insight, didn't they? Filipino consumers deeply associate shared meals with family milestones, heartbreak, love, and sacrifice.
Exactly. They claimed the mental real estate of meaningful relationships. So when you go to Jollibee, you aren't just buying a burger, you are participating in a cultural ritual of connection. You can replicate a fast food recipe, but a competitor cannot easily evict a brand from that deep emotional quadrant in the consumer's brain.
Man, what an incredible journey today.
It really is when you break it all down.
We started by dissecting the invisible 5 stages of buying behavior, realizing that even grabbing a snack triggers a rapid-fire cognitive process.
Yep, the 5 steps.
We explored how brands use qualitative research to push past raw data and unearth deep human truths. Like, discovering coffee is actually a psychological shield for the workday.
That's a great insight.
We saw how they use psychographic and behavioral segmentation to slice up the market and concentrated targeting to allocate their resources efficiently. And finally, we unpacked how tools like perceptual mapping allow brands to claim highly specific emotional real estate in our minds.
This raises an important question for you, the listener, as you navigate your day. Look at the products on your desk, the apps on your phone, the car in your driveway. Every single one of them was designed with a specific perceptual map in mind.
Every single one.
You were researched, your motivations were analyzed, you were segmented, and a specific position was deliberately carved out in your brain. You were walking through this invisible architecture every single day.
It completely changes how you experience the world. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, taking this entire framework and applying it to a completely different context.
Oh, I like this.
Think about your own career, your personal brand, or even your role in your social circle. If you had to draw a perceptual map of your workplace, what are the 2 axes your peers value? And more importantly, look at where you are standing on that grid right now. Are you currently sitting in a crowded, noisy quadrant, fighting everyone else for promotion using the exact same skills? Or have you found an empty, highly desired quadrant that only you can own?